So, hello, Pasha.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Pavel Leon. Hello, Psoy Korolenko. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Psoy Korolenko, he is one of the leading Russian bards today in what I would describe, or what I think others describe, as a postmodern vein. And thank you, Pasha, for agreeing to talk to us about Dmitri Aleksandrovich Prigov. And let me start by asking you whether you knew him personally.
I met Dmitri Alexandrovich Prigov several times, rather briefly. Once, when he gave me and my colleague an interview for the social political web resource, web magazine, polit.ru. He gave us a definition of the intellectual as a такой специальный зверь, such a special beast, which provides a critical view of everything. And this is exactly what this beast is there for. And next time I met Prigov, literally a week or two before his death, together with the artists of the art group Vojna, War, who were just starting up their project at that point. The project supported and loved by Dmitry Alexandrovich Prigov a lot, and they actually planned to elevate him in a closet up the stairs of the main building of Moscow State University, one of the highest buildings in the city. And sadly enough, they finally had to arrange his farewell gathering dedicated to Prigov instead, and they did it in a subway train. Then I remember it as an editor for Ogonyok Illustrated Weekly, an illustrated weekly in 2005, I published his column essays, and when I came to complain to him that the chief editor had been withdrawing what I brought, including Prigov's column, because of its allegedly niche character, then Prigov said, "Oh, let me teach you something. Use the word exclusive material. Say it's not niche, it's an exclusive, and they'll buy it." And I also remember a joke that was retold to me by a friend who heard it directly from Prigov. Что-то хочется на рояле поиграть. Да вот рояль, иди играй. Да, я как-то его себе по-другому представлял. I have a craving to play piano. Go play. It's here. Here is one. Really? It's not how I pictured it. And sometimes when he said goodbye, he would make a serious face and say, "Живите не по лжи. Live not by lies. This is most important. Live not by lies." Probably he would say this to people who was not his close friends, some more or less like in some kind of playful socializing mode. And to me, this line is still associated rather with its actual creator, Solzhenitsyn.
You have a song,
Yes, I even finally,
Жить не
yes,
по
I even,
лжи. So,
right,
was
I
that
even wrote this
influenced
song.
by Prigov?
It was inspired by Prigov's habit to say so. Yeah, that's right. It was actually inspired by Prigov's habit to say so. And also, he presented me one of his million homemade hand-printed little books, Matrosechka. He would typically probably present it to people sometimes. And this is how I met him, and it was very, very impressive. Then I first saw him at his reading, it was in Klub Poezia in Moscow, or maybe Dom Kultury Zuyeva in Moscow, where they would typically perform during the early years of Perestroika. And like many, I felt shared his creative vibes, his power, his knowledge. Of all late Soviet third literature authors, not mainstream and not dissident either, he had the most outstanding power and charisma. His texts were spells that could possibly turn you into a poet. You would feel this direct transfer. And he was the first who actually made me feel that I really can produce a new and culturally relevant thing. He had this, he could infect you with his poetness, as it were.
Am I correct in assuming that Prigov's work influenced yours, both stylistically and perhaps also on the level of content? Am I right or not?
Stylistically, content-wise, and the spirit of sanity, seriousness, miraculously combined with playfulness and cleverness. And they are very sane and healthy. They are very anti-modernist in this way. They typically they referred to as postmodernist, but in fact he was an utter realist above isms, just like Pushkin. But mutatis mutandis. He has a very beautiful poem about this. Когда я размышляю о поэзии, как ей дальше, то понимаю, что мои современники должны меня больше, чем Пушкина, любить. Я пишу о том, что с ними происходит, или происходило, или произойдет. Им каждый факт знаком, и говорю им это понятным нашим общим языком. А если они все-таки любят Пушкина больше, чем меня, так это потому, что я добрый и честный, не поношу его, не посягаю на его стихи, его славу, его честь. Да и как же я могу поносить все это, когда я тот самый Пушкин и есть?
Pasha,
Beautiful. Yeah.
or Psoy Korolenko. Do you consider yourself a conceptualist in the tradition of, or in the tradition of Prigov, or a tradition established by Dmitri Alexandrovich Prigov?
Well, I think that the Moscow conceptualists were actually some particular group of people, some particular school, circle, which I have never been a member because they worked much earlier than I started, and it's a particular group, but they are developing traditions of Oberiou, of realistic poets and artists, and of many other more or less narrow circles of poets, little schools that were important and influential in the previous generation. So I believe that my generation, and me in particular, have been influenced by this spirit as well, but I don't think about myself in terms of Moscow conceptualism. It's a very special trend, and but this bizarre, this concoction of quotations, syntonic poetry, playfulness, irony, semi-parodical mode, combined with seriousness and carefulness. This is what's associated with Prigov and some other poets somewhat similar to him. Yes, I think that I appreciate this vibe as one of my inspiration sources. one of the very important sources of inspiration, of artistic inspiration. Also considering that Prigov was a syncretic artist. He was a visual artist and sculptor. He was a musician. He participated also in musical projects that are dear to me, and in visual art and actionist art projects like the one I mentioned already. And Prigov was collaborating with Srednyorusskaya Возвышенность, the musical project created by artists, conceptualist, like figure of a rock band, which was not actually a rock band, but which was a collective of artists who played rock. And he collaborated also with jazz musicians. So he was very artistic and very scenic. And this scenic element, this actionist element, and this syncretism of his art is very important for me as a songwriter performer. Prigov was a performer, and this performer vibe also touched my generation much, I believe.
Well, thank you, Psoy Korolenko,
Thanks for
for
reminding me
for
of
your
this.
comments, especially since, unlike our other commentators, you are an artist yourself, and in some sense, a continuation of the kind of work that Prigov introduced into Russian culture.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Prigov is a wonderful example of this. He was a knight of sanity. He was a knight of sanity and intellectual health. And he was this special beast which delivers the woods of our mind from all kinds of sinful, harmful, wild things and shadows. In this way, he was anti-modernist and anti-decadent in a good way. And
Not a bohemian.
yeah,
Not a bohemian, right?
very much un-bohemian.
Yes.
Very much un-bohemian, yeah.
In fact, he and I once had a conversation about that. And he rejected bohemian ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds very Prigov.
Yes. So again, спасибо. Thank you.
Спасибо.